On a day like this, it is very difficult to crack a smile. But let's try. Let's see if this story helps. In 1962, the children of Achimota School engaged in all manner of extracurricular activities. One of them was cultural music and dance. The students would line up according to their year groups to sing and dance to the songs of different Ghanaian tribes and traditions. The youngest girls led the procession, followed by the older girls and then the younger boys. First and second year boys were not allowed to play instruments, so they sang and danced with the girls in front. Now, from third year upwards, the boys were allowed to play the instruments, but only the sixth formers, the oldest boys in the school, were allowed to play the huge percussion drums. Not every student got the chance to join the cultural procession. Not every student wanted to, but one young 14-year-old boy certainly did. Let's call him John. Now, every time the culture train paraded by, young John would watch wistfully as they sang and danced. He would gaze admiringly as the older girls wiggled their ample African assets and look on enviously as the big, tall sixth form boys skillfully thumped out loud, complex rhythms on the huge animal skin drums. John longed to be like them. He wished with all his heart that they would let him hold those L-shaped drumsticks so he could raise them high above his head and bring them crashing down on the drums over and over again to produce the intricate rhythms that everyone loved to dance to. But he was only informed to, and so he would have to wait several years before anyone would let him near those drums. But that didn't stop him from dreaming. Every time the culture troupe performed, he would repeat the drum beats under his breath over and over again until he had them memorized. Silently, he continued to pray that his day would come. And it did, sooner than he expected. It's not clear why, but while he was still in his second year, John got called up to join the troupe. And they wanted him to play an instrument. He was overjoyed. He had dreamt of this day for so long, and it was finally here. All his memorized drum beats were suddenly going to become useful. They were going to hand him the L-shaped drumsticks at last. He first smelled a rat when he was given only one drumstick instead of two. Then somebody handed him the smallest drum he had ever seen, and John knew he was being swindled. They placed him at the front of the procession and instructed him to play one rhythm and one rhythm only. Ko, 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 ko. Just like that, 2 beats per second in perpetuity until the end of the performance. John was livid. Did they not know what he was capable of? Did they not know how many drum beats and rhythms he had memorized? How dare they underestimate him like this? How dare they waste his enormous talent? He would show them what a terrible mistake they had made. And once everyone was in place, the teacher signaled for young John to start playing his little drum. So the boy began to whack out the prescribed beat, cook, 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 with his single drumstick. One by one, the other instruments joined in, all of them in time with John's drum. He could hear his beloved big drums cracking out the beats he had memorized in the back. The beats he should have been playing at that moment, if there was any justice in this world. Instead, they had him playing this. What was he playing? John noticed with horror that he had missed his beat, and as a result, every other instrument in the procession had missed their beat too. He tried to concentrate and bring the beat back, but each time he heard the other drums, he would get distracted and drop his beat again, throwing the whole procession into disarray. Eventually, everyone reached the end of their tether, and the teacher in charge just grabbed the tiny drum from John's teenage hands, thanked him for his service, and asked him to leave. And that is the story of how a teenage Jerry John Rawlings got kicked out of the Achimota School cultural troupe. Now, I tell you this story because of first of all, the very important lessons that I learned from it. Number one, regardless of what you think, every job is important. So what if you sweep the streets? So what if you clean toilets? So what if you sell credit by the roadside? Do you have any idea the kind of chaos that would ensue if you suddenly stopped doing your job? This nation is made up of 30 million people, all doing different things to make Ghana work. If you cease to do your part, Ghana ceases to work. We are only as strong as our weakest link. Don't let that weakest link be you. Number two, concentrate on your job and not the jobs of others. We all like to think we are experts on everything. We invite plumbers to our home to fix a leak, and then we try to instruct the plumber on how to fix it. We all have important work to do in building Ghana, and we can't waste time and effort trying to do other people's work for them. And finally, if you are given a gift and you don't utilize it, guess what? It will be taken away from you. Young JJ didn't realize the importance of the job he had been given. His little drum was supposed to provide the timing for the whole cultural performance, but he was too busy complaining to realize that he had been placed at the front of the procession for a reason. By the time he realized the importance of his task, it was too late. The late President Rawlings loved my messages from the Morning Man, especially this one, which I wrote from a story he told me one long memorable night in Vume in the Volta region. He liked the idea that I would spend hours every day thinking of a positive message to share with the nation. And I would like to think that wherever he is right now, he's enjoying this message to you this morning. And it's a very simple message, by the way. Whatever your task, do it as if the whole country's survival is riding upon it. Because guess what? It is. My name is Kojo Yankson, and every morning I play my beat. Join in with your own rhythm, and let's build this nation together. Good morning, Ghana.
Morning and welcome to the AM News with me, Mapisa CBD. Now, tributes are still pouring in for Ghana's longest-serving head of state, former President Jerry John Rawlings, who died at the Kolobu Teaching Hospital on Thursday after a short illness. Born Jeremiah Rawlings John, the founder of the National Democratic Congress, was Ghana's first president of the Fourth Republic. His family was at the Jubilee House on Thursday to officially inform President Akufo-Addo of the passing of the statesman.
A great tragedy has befallen us as a country and as a family. Some 4 weeks ago, we were here to inform the presidency of the death of our mother, our grandmother, our sister, and the president, because of his special love for the ex-president, the former president, assisted us a lot in the burial of our mother. Just some few weeks or some few days after the burial, the former president, Jerry John Rawlings, fell sick and was hospitalized. A lot of efforts were made. I know the president was in touch with his brother. Little did we know that former president will leave us. So we've come here formally to inform the president and the entire government that this is what has happened. It is true. Jerry John Rawlings is no more. And we deem it appropriate to come and inform you officially. And with me, the delegation is General Joshua Botri, Honorable Senator Rawlings, Mr. Michael Susudis, Santua Rawlings, Amina Rawlings, and then Celia Aholu, and then Richard, Uncle Richard, Bill Captain Richard Fojo.
Now, President Akufo-Addo says his administration will work closely with the family of Mr. Rawlings to give him a befitting burial. For him, the former president was not an ordinary man.
I found it hard up to now to really incorporate, assimilate the information. He's a man of great vitality, dynamism and energy. It's very difficult to conceive of him as a dead body lying in a morgue. But then, I think one of the things that all of us have got to get used to is that the Almighty has His own plans for each one of us. And improbable as some things may be, nevertheless they happen. It's a moment for reflection and for continuing to believe in His purpose, that He has a purpose for each one of us. And as it appears, the former president's work here on earth has come to an end. He and I had a tempestuous relationship going over many, many years. But I believe that we came to see value in each other. That's how I put it by the end. Extremely disturbed and saddened by his passage. He's not an ordinary Ghanaian. He was the first president of our Fourth Republic, a man who held the supreme office in Ghana, and therefore his passage has to be a matter for the Ghanaian nation. I know the feeling of family on such an occasion, but I think that you would understand if I say that on the death of such a man, precedence has to be given to the state of Ghana. So the Chief of Staff, their office, will be in touch with Colonel Abutri and the family, and Akonedo Ajiman Rawlings, for us to agree on how we proceed. Time for funeral, and all those things have to be agreed upon, but that the state has to pull out all the stops and make sure that he's given a most befitting and dignified exit. I'm determined to do that. I think his contribution to this country's history is there for all to see. And at the end...
On hearing the news, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia suspended his campaign, describing former President Rawlings' passing as a great loss to Ghana, Africa and the world. Also, the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Mahama, who was on a 6-day campaign tour of the Ashanti region, cut short his tour with immediate effect and returned to Accra to mourn with Rawlings' family. In other stories, Togbe Efede, the 14th, has been defeated in his quest to be retained as the president of the National House of Chiefs.
7 members of House of Chiefs were restrained from exercising their franchise due to a court injunction served on the House. Council explained the order before the House.
So until the application is heard on merit and same being granted or dismissed, the National House of Chiefs proceeding with what they are asking the court to not allow them to do would amount to contempt, and so far as the law of the land is concerned.
5 elected members of the Western region were among persons restrained from taking part in the election. The Gaman chair, Dr. Ken Takite Ekotru, and Chief of Nkransa, Nana Kwame Bafo, are the other 2. Obrempong Hema Denchi, one of the chiefs being exempted, however, contested the council's direction.
And I wish to put on record again that it is our fundamental human rights to exercise our franchise. And nothing ought to be put as fetters in the way to prevent us from exercising such a right.
Some chiefs had to step in as the matter continued to drag. The House agreed for the election to be held without the 7 chiefs. At the end of polls, Togbe Afede lost to Ojiahoho Yaojebi. Vice President of the House of Chiefs, Dasebre Kwebu Eusi the 7th, also lost to Paramount Chief of Laura Traditional Area, Napuwele Kabo the 3rd, by 28 to 44 votes.
At the end of the election, Togbe Afede the 14th obtained 25 votes. 25 votes. Ojiahoho Yaojebi the 2nd obtained 47 votes. 47 votes. By this, I am privileged and honored to announce to you that Ojiahoho Yaojebi the 2nd, Seshi Anyafone, is duly elected as the President of the National House of Chiefs.
The President-elect assured of working with all members to better serve the nation.
When we started giving our addresses, we all preached or talked about peace and unity. And this is precisely what both of us are going to emphasize in the course of leading this house. We are going to be your chief servants and at the same time your leader. And we promise you that as much as possible we involve all of you in the decisions that we take in this house.
And that's how we end the AM News here on the AM Show with me, Mapita Sibidi. The show continues with Mama V and Benjamin. Enjoy.
Well, thank you very much for connecting with us. It's another morning. It's a sad one, but here we are immortalizing the man, Jerry John Rawlings. And we're going to be delving into the papers, a lot of them. Mama V talking about him, his life. This morning.
All the papers, really.
All of the papers, basically. Yesterday, on Joy Prime, I mean, after campaign trail and all of that, we had an extended session, and you wouldn't believe people were calling for 3 hours. We were, playing back clips, sharing thoughts, tweets, Facebook messages, and people called and called. People called and wept live on air. So it tells you about this larger-than-life, personality that we're speaking of here. And one thing that touched me, even then, Mahavi, a lot of people were still they were in disbelief. Has he actually passed? He had this aura about him as though, but people just felt, he was larger than life, and it has hit us all in a very bad way. First president of the Fourth Republic, and interestingly, first one of the former presidents to actually pass on. We had Aka, vice president under Rawlings, who passed, Aliu Mahama, vice president, out of tenure, who passed, Parkwesi Emisata, out of tenure, who passed. Before that, Atta Mills, the only sitting president, and now we have the first former president to pass on to glory. I mean, our condolences to the family. And a lot of the papers are capturing that.
Let's do the Daily Graphic newspaper. The Daily Graphic does it best, if you like, with the papers. And it's JJ gone, nation in tears. And you should see the entire front and back page. It's just been made into one, so you can appreciate it if you open the paper. So this is how it looks in terms
full size,
of
basically.
The front page. This is it, right? So you can turn it like this. But if you were to open it, and I'm going to do it right now.
So we see the full view.
You see the full view of the paper. Absolutely. This is one to buy and keep. Yeah, keep. So
I think this is when we're going to have a lot of his memorabilia that we can, you know.
Absolutely. And they've got former President Rawlings taking the oath of office. The first time President declared 7 days national mourning, flags to fly at half-mast. And yesterday, as I was monitoring on radio, on Joy FM, Elton Broby, our presidential correspondent, did indicate that the flags at the Jubilee House were already flying at half-mast yesterday. But we know that takes effect today. Ministry of Roads rolls out flagship projects, also another front page headline, and support security agencies to ensure peaceful elections. That's a call by Hobby Asma. Let's take a look at what's in the center spread. Well, plenty pictures of the man that we lost yesterday. JJ is gone. There are pictures of him from way back to the very present. You can appreciate it in the center spread of the Daily Graphic. It's a photo report in the center spread from 1947 to 2020. The very first one I see is JJ as chairman of the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, handing over the reins of government to President Hela Liman, a man that he would oust later on. Okay, so plenty of pictures for you to take a look at in the paper. There's one with him with Jacob Zuma. There's one with him with the Tumfose to the second. This with the Bill Clinton. Also Evans Atta Mills, the late. Well, lots of pictures. And then, of course, the back page is still JJ. So it's a lot of JJ this morning.
Kind of morning.
Yes, that kind of morning, because
it's a morning.
I think it was just 2 weeks ago that he buried his mother, and those who were with him said he looked healthy. In fact, he shared a lot of jokes during the entire process. And from our Volta regional correspondent, Fred Kwame Asari, who went to Jelukopa yesterday, that's where his mother was buried. That's where the family house is. Said that he was in Jelukopa on Sunday, and he had told the elders that he would be back so they could plan his mother's 40 days. He was going, he would be back to plan the 40 days with them, and he won't be going back.
It's like we say in Chi, me kwabo, and this is what happened. But October 19, the last time we actually saw him in full glare publicly, you know, and it appears, well, his maker has called him. But if I asked you what your fondest memory was of him, what would you say? that would be fun.
I won't know what to say, really.
For me, there are so many of them.
I think some of us
I love the way he, you know, his Chi thing. You know, you remember President Rawlings speaking his Chi and the bebuno, you know, the proverbs and how he would twist them and all of that. No Frantomas, you remember that? Oh, beautiful, beautiful one there, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, the Ghanaian Times, nation in shock. JJ Rawlings dead at 73. And it's the same things we've been repeating already. President declares 7-day mourning, flags to fly at half-mast. Ex-President Mahama, world leaders reacting, political activities suspended. I mean, even musicians have been reacting, a whole lot of people. But when you go to page 3 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, armed robbers attack Wa West DCE and others and make away with money and phones. That's a story there. Then court issues arrest warrant for self-acclaimed pastor, actually calling himself St. John Walker. And there's this one, pastor remanded for allegedly murdering 90-year-old wife. I had to do these stories as well from the Ghanaian Times, pages 11 and 23. Now, page 11 says, Peje SHS adjudged overall best farmer in Ho West District. And this would be the first time from last Friday when it emerged the overall best farmer in the Ho West District at the Farmers' Day Awards ceremony. The first time this prize is being won by an educational institution in the district. This actually reminds me of my days back in Bishop Herman College when we became farmers by force. But that's the story there. Congratulations to PJSHS. And then Jan on page 23, Legon cities have better projects than my own Krobia Asante Kotoko. Can you imagine? That's what Asamoah Baby Jet is saying. You can check out those stories in the Ghanaian Times newspaper.
Let's do the Daily Dispatch. And the Daily Dispatch is bringing back in print an interview that the late J.J. Rawlings granted Asase FM. So Rawlings' last interview on Asase FM on his childhood, coups, executions, and elections. And then 141 markets and lorry parks to benefit from a disinfection exercise in Greater Accra. Basically, that's what you find in the Daily Dispatch. And then Rawlings laughed at the ordinary man on the streets, says poster and managing editor of the Dispatch, Benefsin, as he eulogized the late former president.
Let's move on to the Daily Guide. Government constructs 2,319.79 kilometers of roads in 4 years. That's according to the Roads Transport Minister. Then Upper West Region starts mass fumigation. Rawlings has passed on. Nana declares 7 days of mourning. House of Chiefs get new president. That story also there. When you go to the back page of the Daily Guide, African Games, LOC proposes varsity for development. And if you missed it, likely you did on the back of that sad happening, Ghana also beat Sudan by 2-0 in the AFCON 2021 qualifiers. And Andre Ayew actually bagged a brace in there. He's been trending as well, owing to the goals he's been scoring in recent times. Liverpool injury woes deepen, and those are some sporting stories on the back of the Daily Guide newspaper.
Let's get into the Finder newspaper on the front page. Well, to be expected, sorrow, disbelief greet Rawlings' death. President Akufo-Addo declares 7 days of mourning. Also, government spends 9.7 billion Ghana cedis on road sector in 4 years. Dr. Baumia is a role model to Zongo youth, according to Binduri Imam. And Ojiahoho Iya Ujebi is new National House of Chiefs president. Well,
wasn't he in the news recently?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, doing a lot of criticism. Well, no wonder he was on the other side of Toby Afede. But I will miss Toby Afede, the 14, the Agbogbo Mafia of Asogli State. I think there are, and we'll probably find proper time, and talk about his reign as the House of Chiefs, the National House of Chiefs president. I think he made a lot of impact and brought a lot of progress as well, because he's a very well-connected gentleman and very outspoken, very independent. I think he brought something to the House of Chiefs, and I hope that it could be maintained so that it would stand on its own as an independent institution.
I think he was a breath of fresh air, and each person that comes, I mean, these are lofty, big boots that the next person, Ojiahoho, has to fill. And we're only hoping he will do better so that the institution just keeps getting
Because you
better.
need to have a voice of your own. Right. You don't always have to sing along.
Yeah.
You have to be on the side of the people, because you're representing the people.
He has even had to come out and clarify certain matters and say that this is not the stance of the National House of Chiefs and don't denigrate the institutions and all of that. So he was a strong man in the position, and he will be remembered for his good work, but not to mention his ties with Accra Hearts of Oak as well.
He's our chairman. Hello.
How could you forget?
I didn't forget.
A fan of Krobia Asante Kotoko had to remind you of his role in the National House of Chiefs, beyond the National House of Chiefs in Hearts of Oak.
See, when you're dealing with chiefs, when you're talking about him as the president, president of the National, you don't bring football into it. You're so competitive. Everything is like Kotoko. What has Kotoko got to do with this one?
Kotoko is life.
Oh.
Anyway, so the Daily Statesman now. Ghana mourns Rawlings. Akufo-Addo prays for brokering peace in Mali, and also that one. 14,700 Ghanaians to benefit from digital technology training. Are you done with your stack?
The Ghanaian publisher just wanted to show you how they've also captured the death of Rawlings, and the picture that goes with the headline, Rawlings dies at 73. Akufo-Addo declares 7 days of mourning. That's the Ghanaian publisher. I guess I'm done.
Let's do the Republic Press. That's my final newspaper. It says it's only Akufo-Addo's government that can fulfill pledge to us, to pay us assembly members. This is a story that I believe yesterday was in the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Ghana in shock over Rawlings' death, and Ewadako fights bossed CEO over claims of financial loss. The current CEO, Provençal, has been saying quite a lot, and the former CEO, Ewadako, is countering some of those statements. But the Republic Press now, do you follow the music of Eno Baroni?
Well, not really.
Okay,
Once in a while.
She's the rapstress, if you like.
She's what?
The rapstress.
Oh, yeah. That much I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to follow her when she was like an underdog, when she started coming out, because I like to watch videos of battles.
You know, I was about to say something in reply, but I felt it would be too savage, because I was about to ask, isn't she still? But
you are so mean. You say I am mean, but I think you're mean.
She's a wonderful
DJ
rapper.
Black used to have something to do with her in terms of her career.
Right.
That was when she was still, for me, when she was still coming up.
Right.
And I used to like her raw like that, you know, when she would do the battle, because I'm a rap person.
Yeah.
When you're doing the commercial side, I don't really appreciate it.
Right. Yeah. But Charlie, people for Chopo,
yeah, what is she saying?
Anyway, so Eno Baroni joins Oheneyere Gifty-Aunty, Amaprat, others to launch Women Lead by Advocacy for Women into Power. Just
that's a good initiative.
Now, the Advocacy for Women into Power has launched an official project called Women Lead to support all women who are contesting in the 2020 general election in Ghana. And so there was a virtual launch and all of that. So very interesting perspective here, especially as friends like Amaprat and others are also in there. But anything to promote women, you know.
We've got a conversation coming up on Monday. We call it Women Power Politics, and it's essentially following the female candidates in some of the crucial constituencies. We've got 38 of them in Parliament. Absolutely not enough. I mean, we're not saying vote for all women, but we also want you to appreciate what they bring to the table so that you will be convinced and then you vote for them. So brilliant conversations about the women contesting in the CS race. And this is on the ground.
I'm not being, sometimes people think you're doing it too much, but I think when you look at women leaders across the world, you realize that there's something, a lot that they bring to bear. I don't know what it is and how they are very different from us men, but I think the more women you have in governance, the better things are in most quarters. And I think we need more women in
So the first candidate that would
Would you, before you go on, another problem we've noticed is that oftentimes women don't accept leadership positions. If you were ever, offered one of those lofty positions to take up of state, how would Mama V respond?
Well, I'll say let it come and let's see. Because see, I don't want to jump at anything that comes at me or anything that is presented to me. You want to be convinced that you can actually deliver. So it's not, oh, give me a position.
Solid point.
But is this something that I'm passionate about? Is it something that I can make impact and, influence? Then of course I will take it, if it falls. But I was just going to say that the first candidate that we talked to is in Tema Central. She's actually on our show today because she's one of Rawlings' girls, like somebody who grew up under Rawlings, actually went into politics because of Mr. Rawlings.
He's like her mentor, basically.
Say again?
He's like her mentor,
Oh, yeah,
basically.
absolutely. And she first went in 2016. She couldn't make it. She actually wasn't going to go 2020. So it's one of the things I asked her, what happened? But you would love her campaign. You love the whole idea. It's full of ideas, full of issues. And it is around Tema Central. Like, she knows the issues in Tema Central.
Right.
She appreciates and she has a plan for it.
Looks like she's going to give a hell of a time to the incumbent because the Tema area is more of an NPP, the incumbent.
So the incumbent also lost in the primaries. So there is a new candidate. There's a new candidate for the NPP. But you would love AB Bright and what she's up to in Tema Central. That's showing on Monday, by the way.
Anyway, let's do something from... Did you just do a story?
No, I didn't. But go ahead.
Well, the Ghanaian Times newspaper, let's maybe go to this story. Security matters ahead of election 2020. Armed robbers attack Wawes DCE and others make away with money and phones. And armed robbers on Wednesday attacked and robbed the district chief executive for Wawes, Mr. Edward Labir Sabo, his entourage and other passengers. The robbers also took away unspecified amounts of money, phones and other items after holding their victims hostage for 3 hours. The robbers, who encamped at Choksie in the Wichiao Road, stopped road users, including the DC and members of the Wawes District Assembly, who were on their way to a traditional council meeting at Wichiao. Now, my concern here, this waylaying act that we seem to see. So they waylay you, they ambush you, and that's exactly what we saw in the case of Honorable the Mfantaman member of Parliament, you know. And here we are again, we keep seeing these incidents. I mean, the sort of ammunition they're using and all of that. Our roads, we need to do something about some of these stretches of road. Up north, there are certain places that, you know, if you're going there, even people who are trading and the rest, you could likely get stopped, robbed of all of that. We need more safety. And now they're attacking, you know, people of prominence. It's not just, maybe this will get the attention of the security apparatus. Not to say they are just looking on, but I'm saying that we need more protection. So that's it for the Ghanaian Times this morning.
Okay. Should we go to My Joy Online?
Yes, we shall.
Okay. Let's check out what's on our page, myjoyonline.com, shortly. We will also be going to America so we can give you the latest updates, because Homeland Security has been speaking about the elections and particularly the allegations of fraud leveled against what happened recently, which is in sharp contrast. And this is a Homeland Security that also operates under Trump, by the way, which has Trump as leader. But first, let's do myjoyonline.com. NDC's political committee to hold an urgent meeting following death of Rawlings.
Well, you could also look at that COA FS story. $200,000 bribery scandal hits FDA boss and head of legal affairs over COA FS. If we can scroll below, there are more stories, Mama V. So you can check out some photos from Akufo-Addo's meeting with Rawlings' daughters. Then Rawlings' life in photos and videos.
Okay, so still on Rawlings' death, Akufo-Addo declares 7 days of national mourning, flags to fly at half-mast. Social media in shock over death of Rawlings. It's been plenty of reactions. Ben was just talking to us a while ago about people phoning in and crying. Former President Rawlings has died. This was when we first announced it. Nana Konadu may suspend political activities following Rawlings' death, according to pollster Ben Efson. I am deeply saddened and disturbed by Rawlings' death, says the president. And on contracts for sale, Shraj reports baseless, full of lies, sacked PPA boss. And he says
Benjamin Boateng is still speaking.
Yes, he spoke on Net2, and he says he's going to go all out and fight this.
Where all out means exactly what?
Well, going to the courts, obviously.
Declare his name.
Yes.
Well, interesting times. I would just sneak in because you mentioned the American setup. You know, Joe Biden has announced that Ron Klein actually is going to be his White House chief of staff. Klein served under Al Gore, and he served in many capacities in the last 2 decades. So interesting pick there. Even as it's also very interesting how that transitional, you know, setup, how you would normally have an American transition, is not happening as normal, because a certain Donald John Trump still isn't having anything to do with Joe Biden. But this is how we wrap it up on the news review. It's time now for sports, and more action coming your way after that. Stay with us.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM Sports with me, Oreko Wampofo. Well, yesterday was a good day for the Black Stars because they did record their third win out of 3 games in the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. And their way was Sudan, who they faced at the Cape Coast Stadium. And on his 91st appearance, that's a record appearance for Andre Ayew, he scored a brace to ensure that C.K. Akono starts his tenure on a positive note.
And of course Euphoria at the other end, hoping to stop them. How will this match pan out? Maguette Ndiaye gets the match underway and football is back at the top level in Africa as Ghana against Sudan. An early attack for Fosu. Fosu gets it across and held. Fosu, Andre Ayew wants it. Andre Ayew will get it. Goes for the shot, it comes all the way across. 23 metres out. Ayew, what a finish! What a goal from Andre Ayew, and he marks his record 91st appearance with an absolutely brilliant goal. Well, you couldn't have written the script. Ball is in the box and over. Side. Fosu comes all the way across, and is this going to be 2-0? But indeed, Jordan Ayew puts it across and it's ended up, but it's the right ball to play. There are 2-3 in the middle. Can Sudan do something with this? This is one of them. Ekuban. Ekuban, that's a good ball, it's a clever one. There's no offside, back to Ekuban. And the 3 points are going Ghana's way. And what a way to celebrate a 91st appearance for the Black Stars. It's an absolutely brilliant goal. It's his 19th for Ghana.
91 appearances for Andre Ayew means that he just needs 90 more if Asamoah Gyan doesn't play. 90 more to become Ghana's highest player or highest cap player, you know, the player with the most appearances for the senior national team. But let's still stay with the Black Stars. And after the game, captain of the side, Andre Ayew, did admit there was indeed a tough game against the Sudanese.
First of all, I'm grateful to all my colleagues for being here and us getting the 3 points at home. We know that was not the best of football, but as Coach said, difficult circumstances. We managed to stay tight, keep a clean sheet, and score 2 goals. So I'm very happy with what we have produced today. And you know, as we always say, in football is not who scored or whatever. It's the 3 points that we needed to have one foot in Cameroon, and that is done today. Now we're going to prepare for Tuesday. First of all, I really want to congratulate all the players. Some of them are new, some of them was their first time playing in the African terrain at home. Congrats to everyone, and let's keep working.
Let's now hear from the captain, the coach of the side, Charles Kobla Akono, who dedicated the win to former President Jerry John Rawlings, who passed away earlier on Thursday.
What is important is that today we won and our former president passed, and we dedicate that win to him. He's done a lot for our country. We are all proud of him, and may his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
Andre, maybe a word for the former president and the family then. Well, not much to say. It was very sad news to get today, the day of an important game. We were all, you know, a bit down because we all know the history of His Excellency, former President J.J. Rawlings, but I think the guys stood up to the task. We wanted a victory for him. May his soul rest in peace. May his family and everybody stay strong. And may God bless them.
Well, in honor of the former President Jerry John Rawlings, who passed away yesterday, the Black Stars did wear black armband across their arms, on their left arm. And also there was a minute silent before the game did start. But remember, the Black Stars would be facing Sudan yet again, this time in Sudan, and a win would all but secure qualification to the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations. But let's now come to the Ghana Premier League, which kicks off tomorrow. And ahead of the first league clash between Kumasi Asante Kotoko and Techiman 11 Wonders Football Club, the Techiman-based club is poised to snatch all 3 points at the Accra Sports Stadium. The team, which is the only Premier League club in the Bono East region, is confident of winning the league this season, all finishing amongst the top 4 teams. Joy News' Anas Sabit was at the Ohene Amayal Park where the club trains and filed the following report.
With the Ghana Premier League set to kickstart this weekend after a long break as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Techiman 11 Wonders, the only Premier League club in the Bono East region, lock horns with the Porcupine Warriors Kumasi Asante Kotoko at the Accra Sports Stadium. Ahead of this all-important opener, the Techiman-based club is leaving no stone unturned as it trains at the Ohene Amayal Park prior to the club's trip to the nation's capital, Accra. Though the club is yet to record its first victory against Kotoko since joining the top flight league, it hopes to depend largely on the experience of the likes of John Mosi, who is currently the acting skipper of the side.
Kotoko a big team. Min team kaso nya big team senior. But football na the pitch na so na dey. Yeah bobo I think say supporters ni nyina adwene say bio Techiman 11 Wonders dey nya Kotoko be share mo kan bi ba nya kopon ene si hene. To me there, I think the wa ba how share how training ground here na camp mula na camp na. Me di say nyakopo be man sa so da kwasi da.
The experienced goalkeeper tells me that the club has nothing to lose in this encounter with Kumasi Asante Kotoko.
So far the MG say abo Kotoko a big team na here no ye to say John Funu no ye da form ye insuro se kan Kotoko ne na den. Onusuro because here say Kotoko share 11 Wonders say news by 11 Wonders share Kotoko a news. Nti no I think say yeguso ye bomb pie ba bia nyankopon hwehwe nti ye bomb pie say nyankopon be man sa so man sa say nkundie ye de ade am gi so de be ma ye.
For the team manager Amon Mubarak, enough preparations has been in place ahead of this clash and the team would return home with the needed points.
It started pre-season, with some matches binum yabo Sunday yene Lukumasa yabo ha. Nyankopon adom ene na na me wada Roma. They also have the ebo team no team the cover ball no be ade. Your team aye almost 90%.
Administrative manager and a member of the communications team, Mr. Ali Mohammed, tells me that all COVID-19 protocols will be observed strictly in the club's home games to curb the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic.
I'm also keeping on reminding them that the COVID-19 is here. So if you're a supporter and you are coming to the field, at least you are nose mask. If you are not wearing nose mask, I don't think we will be allowed to enter the stadium because the FA has given us protocols to follow, talking about Veronica buckets and other things. So it will be provided at all the gates so that when you enter, you wash your hands before you enter. So that's what I'm telling them that Techiman or Hinamio Park. I'm telling my colleagues over there, the other team, that when they're coming here, hey, they must be much prepared before coming here.
He asked that the club's biggest aim is to either win the Premier League this season or finish amongst the top 4 teams.
Anybody who is going for a war will go for victory, not lose. If you ask all the 18 Premier League clubs in Ghana, they will tell you that they want to win the league. The same thing applies to the Techiman 11 Wonders. We are not exception to that. We are preparing all our arsenal that if the opportunity comes and God grants us the chance to win the league, why not? We'll grab it. But if not, all things being equal, we are hoping and aiming at top 4 this season.
For some of the fans of the club, Kotoko's best this weekend will be a draw, and the team aims at winning all its home games.
So let me say, well, Techiman 11 Wonders support a good crap. Among Brian numbers, and better Techiman 11 Wonders say, say, baby, Tim didn't couldn't do the Abba. Now, will come home. The Hana ya 2 the den. Team Piano better be 1 point to cry then this season.
Asante Kotoko defeated 11 Wonders 1-0 the last time the two clubs met at the Kumasi Sports Stadium. Reporting for Joy News, Anas Sabit, Techiman.
Well, let's still stay on the subject of the Ghana Premier League, which starts tomorrow, and we travel all the way to Dewu. Now, remember, for Dreams FC, in the truncated season that just ended a few months ago, they finished 17th out of 18 teams when it comes to the home table. Certainly, their home form was one to work on, and their captain Michael Abekonu has stated that they have learned their lessons and they would be making sure that Dewu is a much tougher place 4 opponents this season. This is a special report put together by Joy Sports Elon Benaya.
Deu was a difficult place for opponents until last season, which saw Dreams FC endure a bad run of form at home. They lost to Aduana Stars, Asante Kotoko, and Hasselfolk. Captain of the side, Michael Agbekponu, associated their bad run of form to lack of goals and guaranteed that things are going to be better this season.
I think the problem was that we weren't scoring, things wasn't going on well for us, even though we keep on doing our best, but things were not going on according to plan. And it's part of football, sometimes it do happen. Yeah, so this season is going to be different.
Agbekponu also added that as part of lessons learned from last season, they will have to take their chances and also prevent their opponents from scoring.
Yeah, I think this season or last season, the lesson we learned was that we have to take our chances, we have to score, we have to prevent the opponent from scoring us. So I think this time is going to be tough for our opponents. They won't find it easy at all.
The Still Belief side will open their season away at the capital against Interlights on November 13.
Well, November 13th, is coming and it's finally here. The Ghana Premier League kicks off, and let's get updated on the fixtures to expect this weekend when the league does commence. And for Saturday, we have that opener with the Aduana Stars and Hartlepool all the way at Doma. That would be the first game of the 2020-2021 season, and the referee from that is Eric Sefa Entry. And then Legon City's face Brekum Chelsea later in the day in Accra. Wafa would be facing King Faisal on Sunday at the Sogakope Wafa Park, and that would be also the first game on Sunday as Mediama and Great Olympics lock horns at the Akun Park. We also have more fixtures when Ashanti Gold host Karela United at the Lankley Stadium, and then Dwarfs face Elmina Sharks. Well, a game that would be two very, very interesting clubs. There's a rivalry in between the two of them as well. Cape Coast would be the venue for that match as well. And then back in Accra, Liberty Professionals host Bechem United at the Dansuman Carl Randolph Park. We brought you a report of how ready Liberty are. And then Asante Kotoko versus 11 Wonders, the match that we just previewed, would be taking place at the Accra Sports Stadium in the evening. Then also Inter-Allies would be facing Dreams FC in the last game on match day 1. Well, that's it for sports here. My name is Oreku Wampofu. Remember, the Ghana Premier League kicks off this weekend. If you're close to any match venue and you would love to go, you should certainly pass by and, patronage our own league, because we are the only people who can make this league better. And when you decide to go, don't forget to observe the protocols and also wear your face mask as well. So do have a fantastic weekend. We'll be back here on Monday to bring you all the results and all the action that you missed from the world of sports over the weekend. My name is Oreku Wampofu. The AM show continues right after this.
How many of us would toy with the truth if we had to be dealing with our language?
Jerry John Rawlings was born in June 1947 in Accra, Ghana, to Victoria Agbotui from Jelikope Keta and James Ramsey John, a chemist from Castle Douglas in Scotland. On May 15, 1979, Rawlings and 6 other soldiers staged a coup d'etat against the government of General Fred Akufo, but failed and was arrested. On June 4, 1979,
he led 2 coups, first in 1979 before twice being elected president in multi-party elections. A charismatic figure seen as a champion of the poor, but also criticized for alleged human rights abuses. Founder of the NDC, first president of the Fourth Republic, former President Jerry John Rawlings died at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital after a short illness. Let's have a conversation as the entire nation mourns his death. Well, we will be having a conversation about his life, what his life meant to those who were closest to him, and also his contribution to Ghana's democracy. Our guest, Dr. Kwesi Amakye-Boateng, political science lecturer with the KNUST, and a woman who was really, really close to him, Ebi Bright, is convener, June 4 anniversary lectures. As you may also know, she's also the parliamentary candidate for the Tema Central constituency. A very good morning to you both. I'm not sure if it's a very good morning with the news of the former president's death. But let's start with you, Ebi, because you were a convener for his June 4 anniversary lectures. So first of all, tell us about your connection with the former president.
Mama, I have to apologize. It's been a difficult week for me. And the difficulty is how I can express what Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings was to myself and my family, to all of us. He is the one person that I could discuss my security concerns with. And so yesterday when I heard the news, even though I had been distracted with my own life, like those of us around him, you know, just generally are so self-absorbed because we don't pay enough attention to him and his needs. So even though it was strange that we hadn't communicated in a few days, he appears so invincible because no matter his discomfort, he's just concerned about everybody else. It is difficult to imagine that, you know, it's because he is distressed. I don't think that even my security concerns would have gone to this stage if he was able. And the biggest proof that he is gone is in the lack of action, in the fact that things start to fall apart and there's no intervention from him. That was very rare. This is who he was. He would intervene in everything that he was able to. I remember in 2016 when I was poisoned for 3 months to elections, he would personally feed me from his kitchen. So this is the kind of father he was. And I don't know what Zaneto and the rest are feeling, but for all of us, we've lost a father. I was supposed to be officially his spokesperson, working under Mr. Andor in his office. But we had a discussion about what I wanted to do for Tema Central. And as always, in spite of the fact that we understood that his story needed to be told right and he needed to be represented properly, he conceded to Tema Central. He said, honey, there's not enough of you out there. You know, Zaneto is in Kole Klote. Stand for Tema Central. We need you there more than I need you. I grew up proud to be a Ghanaian living in Nigeria because the whole of Africa held this man up. We were proud of the intervention that he'd made in a terrible situation in Ghana. And a lot of what he's committed his life to talking about is just a warning that we seem to take too many things for granted. And that this peace and this environment we enjoy had to be fought for. And he wishes that we never came to the situation as a country where such an intervention as he had to make, he had to lead, happened. You know, it's very painful to see all your documentaries and painful to realize that probably, you know, the real substance of his story hasn't been told. And that was the responsibility of some of us around him.
Well, what's the real substance of his life? What haven't we been told?
I, for one, would have liked to see his book finally come out so that we hear about the events of June 4th and preceding that and after I would have liked to have everyone hear what has been on his heart and his mind, the motivation, the details that over time have been distorted, the space that he's conceded to some to glorify themselves at the expense, of truth. And there was a lot of that. But I also find that I understand him. It was easier for him to concentrate on the pain and needs of others than on himself. And I think that expressing his pain, was a very difficult thing for him to do. So on that score, I understand him. I'm hoping that in the next few days, we would get the opportunity, as he is not here, to distract us with ourselves, because that's what he tends to do. When it's about him, he pushes it back to you. If we have a meeting to discuss what we need to do to complete his legacy, to consolidate his legacy, his selflessness, defeats the purpose, because it ends up being a discussion about everybody else's problems. And that's what I was explaining earlier, that all of us just get used to draining his energy, that even when there's nothing left, you don't see.
Abby, stay with me for a while. I know you're in a lot of pain. Don't apologize for that. I know that you're in a lot of pain. There's a lot that has happened, over the past few weeks. And then this one coming up just yesterday. But Abby, please stay with me. Let me move on to Dr. Amakye Boateng. And I want to continue the conversation with you. When we say he is the first president of the Fourth Republic, explain the circumstances and how he got us to this whole multi-party system today.
Thanks for the opportunity. Ghana had gone through what I call a political merry-go-round from the time of independence until the advent of June 4th and eventually the PNDC. And in fact, the period that the PNDC covered saw political stability in Ghanaian politics. From 1993, January 1st, the coup occurred on the last day of 1992. So from 1993, January 1st until the onset of the Fourth Republic, January 1st, 1983, until the onset of the Fourth Republic, 1992, Ghana went through a period of stability. And here we credit, President Rawlings for that. And he took Ghana through the transition from the military regime. Some people capture it as a quasi-military regime, and then brought Ghana into a democratic dispensation. And as it is, he himself also participated in the political process, came out as an elected leader, as a democratically elected leader. Bringing Ghana to this stage, he had to really go through a storm, really, because the instability that had bedeviled the country from the time of independence until he came onto the political scene was still, rife. People's understanding of capturing the state for good or for bad was still there. And everybody wanted to try, and there were several attempts to, capture the Ghanaian state in the days of the PNDC. So one major achievement was his ability to weather the storm, foil all the attempts that were made, the coup attempts that were made, maintain stability until it became, or the need came up for Ghana to move on. In the literature, some people put it that pressure was brought to bear on him. I differ on that because we still have the Eyadema dynasty in Togo right here. It was not only Ghana, any particular external power was interested in. you need to credit the person of the political leadership who took that particular decision, even coming as a former military leader. In a way, it was the signing of a death warrant if indeed he had done anything untoward. The moment he agreed to lead Ghana into democracy meant that there was going to be a time when he would not be in office. And definitely people who wanted to get at him would, get the opportunity to do so. So it was a bold decision that had to be taken. And you only do that when you have the interest of the nation at heart. So that is how come he came out as the first president of the Fourth Republic of Ghana.
Also divided opinion here in our country. Explain why.
It has got to do with essentially interest. Politics actually is essentially driven by, among other factors, interest. And so the Ghana that emerged, from the days of instability and came out as the Fourth Republic, came with a particular character. And that nature of the Ghanaian state had opportunities for some people, and others saw themselves as not in an opportune situation, if you like, to push their own personal agenda through. So generally speaking, because politics, is driven by interest, those who feel in a way disempowered by the new Ghanaian state, the regime, which hinges on the constitution of the Fourth Republic, obviously will have cause to, blame J. Rawlings for all their woes. And then those who see, something positive in the new dispensation will also lend their support to it. But then one other factor that I think will also have to be considered has to do with how he managed to maintain political stability. The state had to be violent at times in order to stop people who wanted to capture the state for their own interests. So essentially, this interest that accounts for all these issues.
Abby, let me come to you. Can I ask when you last interacted with him? I know that the funeral of his mother was also just about 2 weeks ago. And indeed, when our Volta regional correspondent visited Jelukope, the family house, he was told that Mr. Rawlings had visited just last Sunday and had assured them that he was going to be back, so they would plan the 40 days of his mother's passing. And then now this news. Do you remember when you last spoke to him?
Yeah, that was, must have been about almost 10 days ago. Yeah, about. But, we would usually also WhatsApp and the rest, and that's been about a week or maybe 8 days. I'm not sure right now. I have to check. So that should have clued me in, but
do you remember conversations at the funeral? I think somebody did say that he was joking a lot and asking them to remain peaceful.
He was, and that's that thing about him. He was tired. I said to him, Daddy, you're exhausted. He said, yeah, you don't know the half of it. And while he was saying that, he was throwing peanuts into his mouth. The last time I saw him, and that was after the funeral. I just want to thank the person that spoke before me. Please forgive me.
Dr. Amakye Boateng, he's a political scientist with the KNUST.
Doctor, thank you, because you said very succinctly what we would be saying if we're looking at his professional life. But as you understand, for me, this is if I were having a conversation with him right now about my difficulty, because I've lost somebody so, significant to me, he would excuse the fact that I'm a bit scattered, but he would not excuse, me not being here and focusing on what needs to be done. I am sitting here still on this journey, largely because of him, because he said to me that staying the course in difficult times like he had to. He's not a career politician. I don't think that he ever became by culture a politician. He stepped into a situation and he stayed the course in spite of the changing environment. And he said to me several times that it was as much a betrayal to retreat when the people still needed you, than it was to keep fighting, because you believed in it. So he wouldn't let me step down from Tema Central in spite of the difficulties. And I always knew that he was there. So I know that if I were having a conversation with him right now, that might be foremost, for us. And this is why I'm still here. I don't know how it's going to happen because I feel like, that one last drink, I've seen the challenge in his eyes several times when I expressed the fact that this is coming at too much personal cost to me. He looks at me and in his eyes you can see, "You coward." And that is the one word that we can't associate with him. He endured so much abuse. Yesterday I was upset because some of what continues to happen to this man is deliberate abuse to his person. If there was one advocate for adherence to COVID prevention measures and all of that, it was him. He made sure all of us were sticklers for maintaining distance and all the things that would keep us safe. And then for people to start to say that he died of COVID-19, I think is absolutely disrespectful. Not because I'm speaking to marginalized, COVID-19 patients, but because that didn't happen. So why at this time would you seek to do this to him? Why can't we talk about the very real things for once in honesty? I don't have a lot of permission to discuss the personal experiences that he's shared with us and his motivations and personal pains. Yet I'm hoping that over the next few days, as the family gives us direction, we would step in to do what we owe him.
I think the bit about AB, I think the thing about the COVID was because of some revelations at Korle Bu that he had just tested 2 days ago. A test for COVID came back positive, and he was moved from the cardio center to the intensive care. That was the narrative that came up yesterday.
Well, that is the narrative, but how do these narratives come up? And we keep wondering. He was tested twice because of his own obsession with COVID. He knew his pre-existing conditions, and so he died at the cardiothoracic unit. That's not where we treat COVID. You and I know, this is the former president of this nation, for goodness sakes. Look at the facilities for COVID treatment. They're first class, as you and I know. Would he have COVID? He tested twice. If he was positive, and this is what was, basically leading to us losing him, I would like to think that Ghana would not condemn itself to be said to have not done its best for him. At this time, this is totally unnecessary. At this time, it's okay, he's gone. They've killed him several times before now. But yesterday, it wasn't a joke when I heard it, because the proof that he's gone is in the lack of action. He would always take action on anything. He was the last person to recoil and, from a responsibility or perceived responsibility. If he's not here talking and we are talking and, all of this without his voice, in the present, that's proof that he's gone.
AB,
and I think that out of respect, we should let it rest.
AB, still stay with me. I'll come to you on how he was nurturing persons such as yourself and the intention that he had for the future. But let me quickly just go to Dr. Amakye Boateng. Doc, how do you think we should remember the former presidents? Hello, Dr. Amakye Boateng, if you're still with me and if you can hear me. Okay, unfortunately, I think we've lost Dr. Amakye Boateng. So let's stay with you, Abi Bright. Abi, he nurtured you.
I'm back.
Okay, Dr. Amakye Boateng, thank God. Abi, just hang in there. I'll come back to you. Dr. Amakye Boateng, my question was, how should we remember the former presidents?
Ghana has gone through
Oh, no.
Well, as we try to get a stable connection with Dr. Amakye Boateng, we're showing the picture on the screen is from the Jubilee House, where, as you can see, flags are flying at half-mast. That was the direction given by the president yesterday. But, Abi, I was asking the kind of picture that he had for the future as he was nurturing yourself. There's also Zanato, and I don't know how many others were there or are there.
You see, hello.
Hello, Abi. Abi, Dr. Amakye Boateng, kindly just hang in there for me. Let Abi take this one and then I'll come back to you.
But just to say, I mean, he was an extremely honorable man. And that was one of the first things that, endeared me to him, and would not, under any circumstances, I thank God for his honor. His nurturing of us was very interesting, because he, first of all, acknowledged the difference in the circumstances that we live under today. And so, of course, we weren't called up to lead a revolution, with the military. But he was very interested in exercising our minds as far as the social condition presently is concerned. He was very interested in challenging our hearts, out of comfort. He was the kind of person that couldn't sit still. He was always looking for where there was pain, so he could step in. So it was a very proactive kind of nurturing. If I wasn't paying attention to things going on around me, if I got a bit, absorbed in, a singular issue, every morning was a challenge about things that were going on everywhere. He was very interested in the global picture, and even locally in a more global, outlook. He's one of the inspirations that took me beyond being a development communicator to start to study global diplomacy. And African culture and nature and narrative in that global picture is what I see, what I'd seen pressing foremost on his heart. And he was hoping that we could have a future cadre of young people who were not only responsive to the immediate needs of our country, but were also able to establish the Ghanaian presence on the international scene by virtue of actually coming up with homegrown policies and leading the implementation of this to an extent that we were quite an example for others. This is a man that celebrated others more than himself. And maybe now that he's gone, we can veto him. After he's passed, we can veto all his efforts to keep from, being honored over and over again. He liked to celebrate, the strengths of others. He celebrated Thomas Sankara and his achievements in his country for however short a period that was. Then he celebrated himself. He celebrated us in this generation with fewer challenges than he had to contend with, in ways that even got people to be angry. Sometimes we had to explain to him why our environment needed him to be less effusive in his praise for our achievements. This is somebody that saw, I think, one of the disagreements, and yes, we did disagree a lot, and that was part of the content of our relationship. Part of my disagreement is I said to him that I don't understand how, as a young person, I'm a lot more cynical about my environment than you. You're way too optimistic. You can't have gone through all this and all this abuse and all this exposure, to the vagaries of this environment and still be so hopeful for, the best, that you're disappointed day in, day out. I think he experienced disappointment every single day. And some of the stories and the admonitions that he repeated over and over were because in his mind, action wasn't being taken in certain areas because probably you didn't hear or probably you didn't pay attention. And he was drawing your attention to it. And I think that every day he was disappointed by the fact that not enough attention was paid to saving the environment, to intervening in people's problems. Papa never had a penny to spare. And that's because he could never pay attention long enough to anything that concerned him. Immediately he had a penny, he remembered everybody else who needed something. This is the man that we should be talking about. That is what made him lead us for all those years. And I know that the political scientists and the social commentators will delve into all of those issues. But right now, I can only dwell on, the loss of such a mentor, such an inspiration. And I'm hoping that finally Ghana and this world will listen to his voice, the one that came from his heart.
Abby, I'll come back and talk about the future of the June 4 lectures. And then maybe if you can also give us a little peek into his relationship with the current president, as we know they were quite close. But Dr. Amakye Boateng, if you are still with us and if you can hear me, my question to you was how we should be remembering the man that we've lost.
Yeah, I was just saying that it is the Fourth Republic that is working. Ghana has been struggling to achieve this stability that I call democratic stability. Political scientists generally like to use the term political stability. Ghana has been struggling, and that really is still a challenge for many African countries. In the absence of that, you can't talk about development in any of its form. And if this indeed is coming from him, then definitely that is what, that cannot be taken away. That is forever going to be there, and his name through this is definitely captured in diamond. So that is it. He's bequeathed a major legacy to Ghanaians, stability on the basis of which development in all of its forms can start.
Dr. Amakye Boateng, not to cut you, but did we say that a lot to him when he was alive? Did we communicate that generally in this country?
Well, some of us are still working on some papers which are yet to come out, but we had opportunity to take our students, to go and meet him, engage him, and had a chat with him. On 2 occasions, we took final year students of politics from KNUST to visit him. Yes, we did have the opportunity to share some of these thoughts with him.
Okay. And then if you can also talk about his relationship with his party, the party that he founded. There's a bit of history to it because we didn't see him so involved in the party politics in his last days.
It's an interesting thing. The political party, NDC, definitely got founded on some ideals. The ideals that he cherishes so much. And I like to believe that he saw these ideals as not, if you like, permeating the core elements of the party, even after he was out of office. And some people, instead of exploring how best to achieve this, and interestingly, the NDC currently refers to its manifesto as the People's Manifesto. They're going back to the days of J. Rawlings, interestingly. And then they like to refer to themselves as a social democratic party. These are the ideals President Rawlings cherished. Social democracy cares for the vulnerable in society while allowing the entrepreneurs to make their millions. Social democracy makes sure that nobody goes to bed on an empty stomach. We have not seen this in the NDC. Of course, we didn't see that in J. Rawlings' NDC, but then the party had to, if you like, go through developmental trajectory and achieve that. Today, they're struggling to come back to power and they're making claims about social democracy that has never manifested in the party. So why I mean, what happened, and Jay Rawlings somehow had to, in a way, take a back seat. These ideas were not manifesting, and I think those are the things, stuff like that, that he couldn't, deal with. The social justice in society, and once he saw his own party not addressing itself to it, definitely he couldn't deal with it. And I like to believe that it accounts for, if you like, the hot-cold relationship or the love-hate relationship that we saw between him and the party in the latter days. I like to believe that this is to explain why Madame Nana Akufo-Addo, to make a big political statement, decided to form a political party. I told myself what was happening in the family when the daughter also joined the NDC and comes out as a parliamentary candidate. Then I felt for Chairman Rawlings, because you can see a lot of things, very powerful emotional things unfolding around him, and he managed to keep all those interests going, and that was it. He couldn't help see social justice not really driving the affairs of his party, the NDC.
Dr. Machi Boateng, I grew up with these buzzwords: probity, transparency, accountability. Those are words that he liked to use a lot. How much of this or these standards exist today?
Ghana is still struggling, to achieve these values. They are values, that society cherishes. And those societies that are doing well around the world have these values, if you like, become established. They've entered into the normative traditions of those societies. We are struggling. So if you like, there are standards that we are, ascribing to achieve. For now, that is what I can say. There are values that we must eventually, be able to work with, to attain, to drive our society forward, and to bring about social justice that society needs.
Let me go to Abi. Abi, what is the future of the June 4 lectures? Probably too early because this just happened yesterday, but if there's anything to share?
Well, as usual in our environment, has passed, and suddenly we would not hear his own boom. And so I guess that everybody will see the value in the June 4th lectures. This is usually the case. Now people will start to pay attention to what we can salvage of his voice. Yeah, this is how I look at it. We're usually getting more attention, more respect, more recognition.
But what did it mean to him? What did it mean to him, the events past, in terms of the anniversary lectures?
Well, the anniversary lectures were something that we around him, came up with, because we kept fighting. We kept fighting to make sure that he understood that he should be involved in telling his story. I mean, I think it was his pain that that particular task couldn't be left to the consciences and the memories of other people. He didn't think that he had to take a part in forcing you to acknowledge the truth. And if I think he tried to take it for granted that, people were just truthful. And so that was his way of rebelling against being involved in telling, a narrative that appeared to be coming from him again, or that seemed to be engineered from, his own outfit. I think he might be more comfortable with the June 4th lectures, after he has passed, because now it will take on a lot more, how would I say, of his person. It will be less focused on the rest of us, and it would allow us space to tie it into, the past and what he was able as himself to achieve, because that is very important. The more we diminish him as a person, the less the example of his life is able to inspire us, into the future. So I'm looking for a stronger direction for the June 4th lectures. I know that people will commit more to it because I think it was easier for everybody to go to his office, to speak with him, to experience him as a person, as he was very gracious to allow all of us, than they wanted a specific event, to go and talk. Jerry Rawlings as a person was more interesting to experience than anything else around him. But now we don't have him. And so we might be able to pay studied attention, to consolidating his memory, in continuing the June 4th lectures. The June 4th lectures, however, needs to take on, again, more of a futuristic character, because the problems that we're facing today must have long-term solutions and outlooks. And that is also another direction that he was very interested in. So we're looking for more people to get involved. As for the question that you asked earlier concerning his relationship with the current president, I myself listened as the family, went to inform him of the passing of our daddy. He said, our relationship could best be described as tempestuous, but I think in later times, I have to paraphrase now this later part, we appreciated, each other, something like that. I think it was a very revealing statement, because I think that the way that our politics is so divisive on partisan lines fails to make allowances for a statesman like President Rawlings, who didn't start out ruling or leading this country as a politician or as an elected president, but held this country together in all its tatters and pieces until they were able to usher in a new dispensation of democracy. So he is the father of anybody under this democratic dispensation today. And it is his responsibility to shepherd whoever, is receptive, whoever will acknowledge his unique position. This is the one person that we have that supersedes, all the political parties, under this Fourth Republic. So I think that people need to appreciate the character of Rawlings and the example he set for us in terms of cooperation and just basically looking at the general development of the country, the nation Ghana, and his fight in it and for it has superseded by every account the formation of the NDC as a party or the existence of the MPP in its current form as a political party. And the direction that we need to be looking at, as an example from Jerry Rawlings, is the fact that the NDC was founded to deal with these values of probity, accountability, and transparency, and to offer those to Ghanaians as a democracy. And so the only use of the NDC is to uphold these values. And I think that this is all he challenges us to. However, as a party, NDC is not in Ghana in isolation. We're supposed to lead a stable democracy, as our own anthem, proposes. And so for every former president, it is his duty to shepherd the ruling government. It is his duty to ensure cordial relations with them. And first of all, I see him as a statesman. I think that he transcended just being the founder of the NDC.
Yeah. Let me let you have a say on this, Dr. Amakye Boateng, because he had such a unique relationship with President Akufo-Addo. And I guess the announcement of the 7 days mourning, the flags flying at half-mast, but also significantly the visit yesterday, same day that he died, to the Jubilee House by the family, the children and the elders, and the comments made by the president. Very unique. I mean, what kind of relationship did you see as you're a political scientist? How do you break it down for us?
It's an interesting thing. I recall whether during the 2008 electioneering campaign or 2012, President Rawlings referring to Nana Addo as the short man. I think it was 2008. And then leading to 2012, or was it 2016, Nana Addo visited President Rawlings again. And before then, President Rawlings talked about, having moved on, and so will not make those, if you like, references to Nana Addo again. What really happened, something might have taken place. But then you could see the cordiality. People speak of some sort of personal ties between them and Nana Addo, President Rawlings, Chatuchi Kata, some sort of personal ties behind the scenes. And I think they were able to build on that and bring it forth into the political sphere. And besides, just like AB said, President Rawlings had to move on and play the role, place himself above Ghanaian politics and play the role of a statesman. And I think when that, reality came to him and he assumed it and decided to, live that life, he was relieved, and it made it possible for him to relate to the MPP and, for that matter, to the flag bearer of the party at that time the way he did. I think he had moved on and not necessarily, choosing to stay, if you like, in that parochial sphere of partisan politics, and for that matter, the founder and leader of the party, and so openly supported. No, he decided to serve Ghana, and serve in that very high office, placing himself above politics.
Well, Dr. Kwesi Amakye-Boateng, we really appreciate your time and your thought. Thank you for telling us a lot more about the former president. A.B. Brights, this is not the last conversation. We're mourning with you, and it's been a very difficult period in your personal life as well. So certainly, may God be with you as you go through these trying times.
Thank you. Thank you.
Most welcome.
All right. And that's A.B. Brights. She is convener for the June 4th anniversary lectures, very close to the former president, but also the parliamentary candidate for the NDC in the Tema Central constituency, and of course our political scientist who shared his thought with us. About 3 years ago, I sat down with a man who was, I guess, very close to former President Rawlings. Still very difficult to say because, he was very close to him. And I didn't know that 3 years on, former President Rawlings would pass, and I'll be playing back this conversation. We actually spoke in the former president's office in his compound, and he shared extensive knowledge about the man that he called his friend. Here's a conversation with a former defense minister and member of parliament for Nandom, Mr. Benjamin Kumbo, 3 years ago. Dr. Kumbo, how long have you known Mr. Rawlings for?
Well, I'll say since the late 70s, particularly in 1978.
And what are the early memories of your relationship?
Well, I'll say it was a very fortuitous one. We happened to be playing football in the local park in Laura then. Now that district is Jirapa, a separate district, Nandom, Lambuse, but all that used to be part of the Laura district. And it coincided with the change of currency by the Akufo administration. He had just taken over as head of state. And so a helicopter was coming to land with the new currency for them to put in the commercial banks. Of course, they stopped us from playing our football. And of course, we saw a very young, slim pilot, fair-colored, who came out. So we walked up to him, myself, Dr. Babandebe, who is now in Kenya, and Dr. Francis Bawana, who is now the MP for Jirapa. Of course, sometimes when I look back at it, I ask, was it to let them know that we were the guys in town, or it was just out of sheer curiosity? And when we went, we greeted him and just started a chat. And he was quite receptive. And what we noticed was that he looked at the three of us very, very intensely. And we became friends. After that, the crew came back and then they flew. I'm sure they went to another bank to go and leave the money. Since then, we exchanged addresses. We've been corresponding. So June 4th, for us, came as something that dates back to that relationship with so much nostalgia. And it is not surprising that the three of us were also the three musketeers who were leading cadets on June 4th in Laura at that particular time. So these are some of the circumstances under which we met.
So as friends with Mr. Rawlings, even in those early times, what were you seen doing together?
For instance, you know, we also enjoyed visiting him at the Air Force Mess. Once in a while, where he had a salary, he made quite a few pints of bubra available to us. But something that was unique at that time, anytime we went, anytime he bought us drink, I never saw him drink. The only time I saw him drink was Coke. And that we were very surprised at that particular time. Of course, later in life, perhaps he was. But I guess that the exigencies of flying time, hours, and things, which is one of the very, very disciplinary issues about flying, perhaps was at play. And so, yes, we had our social relationship as well. What is unique about him is that many people might not like him politically, but as a human being, at a personal level, when you get close to him, he's a fantastic person.
What is that one thing that you wish all of us knew about him that most of us unfortunately don't?
See, he has a very strong sense for humanity. Very, very strong one. And secondly, that love for humanity is one that also pushed him into a quest for social justice. And he's very, very passionate about it. For instance, one of the things you will notice about him is if you were to see a man shout at a lady in public, you can see his reaction. It becomes instantaneous.
So he's a total gentleman.
Precisely. So when you see that about him, it gets translated into politics and get lost. So people are looking at the hardcore political activities as against what innately perhaps translated into his political activities.
And then he became president.
Yes.
2-time.
Yes.
How close were you still, even at this point?
Very interesting. I remember any time I was then practicing as a lawyer in Bolga. He used to fly. We took very interesting pictures together. We ate together. Sometimes he left the residency, came just perhaps with one bodyguard to where I was staying. We sat down and talked almost the whole day.
What were you guys talking about then?
Just about our society. Particularly if you see the transition from June 4 to the PNDC period. He used to feel passionate, and sometimes he was not too happy about some of the developments. And one of the interesting things that I noticed was the extension of electrification to the north. One evening, as he keeps saying, he was telling me that, look, Ben, you know your uncles taught me how to fly. Group Captain Dele and the other one who crashed in a helicopter in 1960 in the Dodowa forest. So he felt passionate about it and thought that, look, he would have to get electricity to come to the north. Possibly these people would have been some of the best astronauts if they had those type of advantage. Secondly, the human sense was that he says, look, when I see my own children grow up, it's not that they are naturally more intelligent than children growing up in this environment, but it's just because they have this head start. And he wished that all the facilities that gives every child a head start ought to be spread across this country. We talked about this, and to be honest with him at that time, I didn't foresee electricity getting anywhere nearer the north. The second thing was this communication thing that we started. I too didn't believe I would see a black and white, I would see a television, color television in my lifetime. But I went to the UK, and when I returned, I went to Bolga, and I was driving to Nandom. Then I stopped over to greet a Catholic priest. Then as I sat in the hall, I saw color television, and I was really shocked. They said, oh, it's been there for over a year. So some of these developments were things he was passionate about, because as modern gadgets, it makes life a bit more comfortable than it would be. And he had a very, very strong sense of these things.
Has he changed over the years?
I would say yes and no. For instance, age by itself gets you to change. physically, your look, agility would be different. But mentally, I do not think he has changed very much. Perhaps being a president in a civilian capacity would have forced him, and I could see the difficulty at that time when he became the first president in the Fourth Republic. The difficulty of having to live the military fatigue, sometimes having to wear some suits. And I remember one of the defining moments, two of them, was when he went to the UK, and it was about the Buckingham Palace visit. And of course, everybody expects that to be in Buckingham Palace, you must be seen in a tailcoat and funny things. And I'm sure those who were there at that time will tell how he looked at those coats and just shook his head, put on his long sleeve and his smock. And it became the icon for most Ghanaians and even Africans who wants to look traditional beyond the Nigerians who had always portrayed that. And so that for me was quite a significant shift. Of course, I know he would like to wear his tracksuit and perhaps jog and move around, ride motors around and things like that. Definitely you can do that in a presidential situation. And yet you can see some of those passions in him.
Is he a rebel?
Well, people would always say it depends on, see, being a rebel is seen as something pejorative or negative. Even when you say you are a philosophical anarchist, people begin to wonder what type of person. And I can give you an example. I had taken one of the speed trains from Covent, Birmingham, and I was going to Edinburgh. And I had a book, The Anarchist, which I was reading, and this lady was sitting next to me, fairly grown-up lady. As I went to the gents and came back, I found that the lady had moved to sit and face me because there was a vacant seat. And he kept looking at the book intensely. And he asked me that, are you an anarchist? I said, yes. He said, oh, no, I'm not sure the world is ready for this. And I said, oh, but anarchism has nothing to do with violence and those things. So when you say a rebel, he is a rebel against a decadent society. So I don't know whether it is the society that is the rebel or he is the rebel. Because you cannot get him to live with a society that is decaying, and as he keeps saying, where the moral fiber of the society is degenerating to a very high level. So depending on which side of the divide you stand, you cannot tell who is the rebel. If the society is a rebel, he will be a rebel against that rebel society. If the society is what he approximates, I do not think he will be seen as a rebel.
Is he happy to be 10 and 70?
I'm sure every human being would be, because given the type of lifespan, like I keep telling people that, well, some of us might look relatively young, but just because you've been involved in intense political activities since the late 70s, you see yourself like somebody who is 100 years old. So I can imagine what it means for him who has been here so states twice. And all the stress and things that go with it. Not many people after public office at that high level are able to reach 70.
Would he want to be president again in Ghana?
Well, I'm sure he can answer that question. But what is important is that there are many of these offices that when you look at them from the outside, they might look so pleasant. You wake up one day and you are #1 man in the country and everybody. But internally, you wish you could live another life. The other side of it is that you also still always have the passion that, look, if I had the opportunity for 1 week, 2 weeks, this galamsey nonsense will end. I mean, some of those moments do come to him from time to time. Yeah. And when he sees reversals of some of the gains that have been made over the years, in terms of how our society was beginning to set up and to realize that, look, you can't get away with impunity, you can't get away with malfeasance of many kinds, because there will always be a day of reckoning. Today, we are looking back and it's like there was no yesterday, and that yesterday might not come again tomorrow. But when you look at social processes and forces, they work differently. Never assume that what took place on June 4th, 31st December might never occur again if the objective and subjective conditions become present. The reality about it is that it is the conditions that determine and that produces the one who leads at that particular time. So leaders are products of their time, as they always say. So yes, you can always see that these reversals, as we see in some circumstances, are heart-wrenching. And if you listen to him often, when he says, look, we shot generals, or generals paid the highest price for things that you might call a tool cut as compared to what people perceive to be going on in present times. And those things can really be heart-wrenching because you look back at it. The question you ask is, was it worth it? But you are dealing with the times. Today, you might look at them as extreme measures, but the exigencies of June 4th and 31st December, the political environment at that time, there was no other option except a worse option. If June 4th had delayed, I believe, another year, we would have sunk like most of the African countries that sank and never recovered.
What's your perfect birthday gift?
For him.
For him. 70 years.
That will be a very, very personal one.
I knew you'd say that.
Yes, because
so I
some of the gifts between the two of us sometimes are very passionate ones.
What's your message? Well, what's your message on a birthday like this to him?
Well, he's done his best over the years. He certainly cannot do it all. We only wish that that vision that he had in terms of creating a more egalitarian society, as it were, that vision finds expression many, many years after him. So we wish him well and hope that he would have a deserved rest after some time.
We're still remembering the former president, Jerry John Rawlings. Let's cross over now to Benjamin Akakpo, who is live from the office of the former president here in Accra. Ben, tell us what you can report this morning. Hello, Ben. If you can hear me, tell us what you can report. Ben, what can you report? Office of the former president Jerry John Rawlings. Benjamin Akakpo is in that vicinity. He would tell us what's happening there. Yesterday, we know quite a number of people had gone there to commiserate with the family. Ben will tell us what's happening this morning when he joins us. You're still watching the AM show. We're still remembering the former president Jerry John Rawlings, who passed on yesterday in the morning at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. We've had a lot of conversations about who the man was. I had an interview some 3 years ago with a very close friend of the former president, Mr. Benjamin Kumbuo, who told us a whole lot about the former president. At the time, he was just turning 70. But we also heard from A.B. Bright, convener of the June 4 anniversary lectures, a woman who was also pretty close to the former president, and some political analysis with Dr. Amache Boateng on what the man has left behind, what we should remember him for. And as we all link him to this Fourth Republic, he explained what it all means, where we had come from till this point. We know that the president, Akufo-Addo, has declared 7 days mourning. Effective today, all flags are flying at half-mast. Let's link up with Benjamin Akakpo, who's from reporting from the office of the former president in that community. Ben, tell us what you can report for us this morning.
At what has served for decades as his office. And there's a heavy security presence right from the connection leading here to the other stretch on the main road. A lot of soldiers you would see around. There's a heavy security presence, and it's a no-nonsense sort of attitude we're getting this morning. Now, the bit is this. I interacted earlier with some of the soldiers trying to find out which dignitaries, personalities may have come into the premises today. They were tight-lipped about it. I also made inquiries about whether there was going to be access granted at some point this morning. No word so far, and there have been other journalists who have also joined here this morning, but no access being granted so far. It is not clear when exactly the office is going to allow for some media interaction. But I also went into this adjacent building. Now, those who use the stretch will be familiar with this building. It's a bit ramshackle. I am told it is private property, though it is adjacent to the office of the former president. May his soul rest in peace. In fact, you would notice that some cars of the National Democratic Congress are parked within the premises, which I am told is the norm. It happens from time to time. Now, there is a gentleman we're going to be speaking to in a bit, Yusuf Jawon. He's a bit camera shy, but we're going to get interactive with him. He has lived within this premises for a year, and he'll be telling us a bit about how he experienced former President Rawlings. In fact, he's been intimating to me that he never got to meet the president personally, but indeed from time to time he would see the convoy of the president entering his office and then leaving it, and he has some fond memories that hopefully we can get his camera shy self to come out and tell us. But this is the adjacent property to the office, and I've been interacting with some of the people here. The only sad aspect, no one wants to go live on camera, but it's a morose atmosphere. Everyone is sorrowful. Everyone is sad that indeed this has happened to the former president, who actually passed on to glory only yesterday at the age of 73. We're trying to get interactive, but it appears the person who agreed to speak to us is now camera shy. But here we are at the Ridge residence, or the Ridge office, I should say, not the main residence of the former president, Jerry John Rawlings. As and when we get more information, we'll bring that to our viewers live from here. Mama V, over to you.
There's a lot in that piece of music. And until you tell us about it, I guess our viewers may just think that is because we've lost a former president. But there's a personal connection to the story that we're sharing with you today. Ladies and gentlemen, Sax Bossa will be performing next week, Friday, on the Adum Praise stage. But even before we get into that, you had a personal connection with the former president.
Yes, yes.
Tell us about your first meeting with him.
Okay, my first meeting happened to be at a program that was an annual event of a company, that's First Sky Group of Company Limited. And they called me to come and perform. In fact, when I started performing, then I saw that the president was there. That was Jerry John Rawlings. He was there. So he just moved his phone. At a point in time, they started videoing my performance. There was one song, when I raised the song, they started videoing. So after the whole program, then the bodyguard, they came to me that the president wants to see you. So I just moved, then he just hugged me and told me something that yesterday I can't stop thinking about it. Then I was there, then they called me again that the president wants you to do a special song for the mom. That's a fair word Dutch, which is a blewi in Ewe. And in fact, yesterday, I don't know, I was thinking, was that the last time we're going to talk? And I don't know, you can see, I really...
You said to me that former president, late President Jerry John Rawlings was a worshipper.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
When I said that, this is what I want to say. The first Adum praise, the first Adum praise, I want Adum FM to go and check in their archives. I was then an instrumentalist, I wasn't an artist. So I was sitting at the back seat. Then when Sisi Wanas was about to mount on the stage, then the president just walked in. JJ just walked in unannounced, without any protocol, like announcing that the president is coming. He just walked in to worship. The first ever Adum praise at the Dome. The man just walked in to worship.
It's no coincidence that you're here on our show today.
Yeah.
You performed Bella Bellows. That's the Togolese music, Divas music. Yeah. And that's what, did he want you to perform that particular piece of music?
Yes, because that was it. So they made a video, sent to the committee, they have to watch the video, then they came back to me that, okay, we prefer that song. So it was something that the man wanted me to play for the mom.
And you finally did?
Yes.
And then, after what, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
It's gone.
Yeah. Yesterday, the kind of phone calls I was receiving from people, I was shocked. You know, I'm a teacher, so I was teaching when the calls were coming. I said, why are people calling me? So I wanted to find out, and they said, your dad is gone. It was sad to me. I couldn't continue teaching. I have to just pause.
I want you to perform it, but I have the feeling that if you do that piece of music, we won't be able to have a conversation. So let's talk about the fact that you be on Adum Praise again. This is a special one because we're also celebrating our 25th anniversary next Friday. What should we expect? Since you're a saxophonist, you're a lecturer, in fact, you teach music, you live music, you eat music. So what should we expect from you, the 25th anniversary 2020 Adum Praise?
All what I want viewers to expect is that there's going to be a total shift of the atmosphere. There's going to be an atmosphere of worship, miracle, and breakthrough. You know, we are in a season that people are complaining that the COVID have come to spoil a lot of things. But I tell you that out of Adum Praise, there is going to be a revolution. Things are going to change. Because the Bible says when the praise goes up, His glory comes down. Amen. So I want people to expect miracle this year.
You're still at SOS Heber Minor?
Yes, that is where I work.
Okay.
As a music director.
So how is performing around this period? Because you also still get a lot of gigs.
Yes, a lot.
So you're not so affected.
And that's my testimony. Because that is when I'm getting a lot of gigs. In this time that there's no teaching, my gigs are more than my teaching. And I want to thank God for that.
All right. Well, I thank God that you're here on this stage this morning. We knew you were coming yesterday, but we did not connect you to the former president. So it's no coincidence at all. I want to leave the rest of the time that I have on the show. We're wrapping up in about 5 minutes. So you can perform that Blewu piece of music that you did as the former president requested. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for your company here on the AM show. We'll leave the rest to Mr. Sax Bossa, who is performing on the Adum Praise stage next week. He performs a piece of music that he did for the late president's mother 2 weeks ago.